Wales. Apparently,
Well,
the woke
yeah.
left.
Wait.
The woke left don't like.
We're live. Welcome.
The woke left.
The woke left don't like bites. Is that what they do? And now we are officially the number one rugby pod. Oh, hang on. Is it Brian Barwick?
Have you had a drink, John?
I haven't.
We're on air.
But thanks, Brian. I love a drink. That's all right.
It's like the old days.
Isn't that good, Brian? He's not involved in the sport anyway.
We're just saying
drinks.
before the programme how professional we are these days. We are the number one rugby podcast in Mexico. It is official. Actually, above all the rugby union ones, all of them. I think there's 13. I think there's 13 podcasts on the chart in Mexico.
I think after the NRL conquers Vegas, they're going to move to Mexico. There's going to be a lot of tacos and burritos.
Right, Tijuana, great place to have it. What's Tijuana famous for?
Magic?
For everything.
Right.
What's
South
Tijuana?
of the border?
Tijuana's famous for its brass. I don't know what trumpet is or trombone in
Are you
Spanish,
saying brass is a euphemism for something else?
No.
No, right.
Have you never heard of the Tijuana brass?
Yeah.
No, I
Herb
haven't.
Alpert and the Tijuana brass.
Absolutely.
I've heard of the song and the tequila.
And we have an umpire band at Ellen Road.
And they of course did the theme to its knockout, which is related
Phil Rouge.
to Eddie Waring. Yeah, thankfully.
Wow.
Tenuous.
Yeah.
This is an intro.
Well, I was going to try and record the promo for the show that Steve Masco wants us to do, but I'll just do it myself.
He said he's in no rush for that.
As in no rush.
Is that because he's still hungover from all these free drinks?
There's a letter about Eddie Waring in the paper this week. If you've got any idea what it's about, please let us know, because we don't know. What a great weekend it's been, because it's been a great weekend for catching up with people.
It's always a good...
Nicholas, you saw?
Did.
Canada's own.
Carlson was here for...
Well, let's get through Carsten stuff, because he's brought treats for the dog. Thank you very much, Carsten. She'll love those. She'll eat them in about 5 minutes. But also a bag of biscuits. So if you
from Zurich Duty Free.
Zurich Duty Free.
So got them at the airport.
Yeah. Officially.
But they are official Swiss biscuits.
Sponsored
You
by
can come and say hello to me.
Keith Barron and the other people on that programme. There's one for the teenagers.
James Child, this is what you're missing.
Yeah. Yeah, James. He's selling houses. What are you all about? Haus Speciale Arten, with an umlaut on, aus den Emmental. Sables mit Rahmkaramell.
Looking forward to
They
those.
look like those bits of butterscotch biscuits, don't they?
Have they got Jimmy Kinehorse's brand ambassador?
Well, they might have. Japanese. So there's some kind of Japanese biscuit, one assumes. I mean, that's
it looks nice.
That's with a hazelnut on and sugar. They're all in. Excuse me. Oh no, this one does have the English. Almond meringue biscuit with hazelnut cream filling. I bet it is.
You go away for a few weeks and this show quickly turns into a
foreign now.
confectionery.
We're trying to get to the top of the chart in Switzerland. And finally, Choco Petit Beurre Assorti, which I don't think is in English on the back.
But it's got chocolate.
But it's chocolate biscuits. Thank you very much, Carsten. We'll put them on the floor and devour them after the programme. And that, also Sandy, who's written a book. You remember Sandy? She came on the podcast. Remember that Canadian Rugby League cooperative?
What were they called? We saw her as well. She came to the press box on Saturday.
Whatever happened to that? She's written a book, and I put it on the desk.
I think I wrote a story about that, Rich.
What, Sandy's book? Oh,
the Canadian Cooperative League that never happened.
Did that go as well as the Pyongyang Pylons and Euro 13s? Yeah.
And Toronto Wolfpack.
Toronto Wolfpack. Ottawa, they were good.
New York.
Welcome.
Great merch, no rugby.
Welcome to the programme. Drive Tim Appleton has already been on and said, looking forward to the... hang on, you drink here. Looking forward to the Magic debrief from Curly, Mo and Larry. Who's who? I mean, I'm guessing I'm Curly, yeah. The hair was very much... who was it?
Rugby Jones, or as Sky called him, Craig Lingard.
Same hair. Was he wearing shoes, though?
Has anyone tweeted that photo? Because someone did say
someone has, yeah.
It needs to be tweeted. I don't know, is it harsh on Craig or harsh on Rodri? It depends on your thoughts on bald men.
It's easy to mix up the fact that...
Yeah.
You're saying all bald white men look the same? It's racist. That was obviously tongue-in-cheek for those people who...
They all carry a bucket hat and no shoes.
And he's Australian.
I know.
He invented racism.
Yeah. So. Can you cover the John T. Gawley story as well, please? I think we should start with that, because what an amazing thing to do.
Team of the week.
There's also some news at 6 o'clock, but Anyway.
Oh, is there?
Well, I mean, I broke the news on Friday, but it's been confirmed now.
Oh, what's the news?
Tom Opacek is leaving Hull Cow, but we knew that anyway.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we all subscribe.
Well, yeah, I wrote it on Friday.
I hope all your patrons subscribe via the website, not Apple, because Apple are going to be taking money off you.
Really?
Yeah, because they're
But I think I'm located in the Cayman Islands, so I should be right.
There's no campaigns.
Anyway, back to
Whitehaven.
Yes.
I mean,
Team of the week. You've got a choice. You can have Oldham, who won the League One championship,
which they were expected to from day one. Yeah.
You can have York, who had a great win at Toulouse.
Correct.
Or you can have Whitehaven, who only named 16 players to play Doncaster.
Guess who backed Doncaster -24?
Won it in the last minute, which is an amazing clip from Jordan Weir, friend of the show.
Because Doncaster have been going well as well. That's the
interviews John T. Gawley after the game. Says, "What an amazing win! Thank you, I'm off."
You couldn't have Hull Cow in there.
I mean, you could do, but everyone's seen that. So.
I think as those three stand as two. But the other thing with Kyle Amell's now been appointed.
TV's Kyle Amell.
I think is the lesson in this: don't commentate for Sky because you'll either end up coming out of retirement to either coach or play. I'm looking forward to Brian Carney on the wing at Warrington next weekend.
And Mark Wilson.
Starting
in the centre for Bradford.
I thought it was a bowler.
Not the other Mark Wilson.
Is he batting for the Bradford Pennine League or something? No, that was quite an amazing interview. I mean,
very honest.
The power of local radio.
We don't. I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, Whitehaven, a lot of financial issues. They've had a lot of issues with player misbehaviour, which we have talked about before. But yeah, he obviously hints at a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, which is
new owners that he's not particularly did you use the word ethical?
Yes, it was not up to his morals. So I don't know. I mean, you can read a million things into that, but whether it's a case of they're slashing budgets or they're doing things on the cheap or what, I don't know. But you don't generally get an interview like that, do you? Or a resignation.
The interesting thing is that they need to avoid going into some form of liquidation or administration before the end of the season. Otherwise, that's automatic relegation. So it's great getting Kyle in to coach the team, but what is he walking into? What's he been promised? What's available to him as a resource?
But the off-field stuff at Whitehaven's been happening nearly every year for how long?
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I think when that story emerged last week, I put a tweet out. I mean, it's happening across the Championship and League One. There's just not any central plan, is there?
But they're only 2 points off escaping.
But it just goes to show what you're doing on the field doesn't really matter if you're failing badly off the field.
Which is why grading's quite important.
I think it's also having a plan, and I think at the core of this, I think I'm not sure you guys might have said this last week or recently, but the pay scale for players in the Championship and League One is out of whack to what these clubs make.
Yeah,
you got players on 15, 20 grand a year, and the attendances and the revenue does not back up paying those kind of wages.
A lot of them are on more.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I was using that as a Whitehaven. I mean, I was told by someone that they've got a few players on 12.5 grand, and obviously they're a smaller club in that division, and then you look at your Toulouses and your Featherstones and Bradfords are playing. Can they afford to pay those wages?
Did Wakefield win the Shield, League Leader Shield? Is there a League Leader Shield?
I think there is.
Oh, right.
I mean,
Wakefield can win it next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working, so I'm
You're
not
going.
No. Like Oldham, it's expected. I'm expecting to win the League Leader Shield in November, so I can't particularly get excited about it.
It is a bit different when you're paying, I don't know, 2 or 3 times what you're. I mean,
like Oldham,
it's like Man City beating Sheffield United. It's kind of expected.
It's like, yay! We've won the League Leader Shield. I mean, I should probably be more excited about it.
I think John T. Gawley comes across as an honourable man, even though we don't know the full.
He's been on the podcast before. I spoke to him at the Summer Bash a couple of years ago.
Kyle Amell, I hope, is successful in the beginning of his coaching career. Because the one thing we know he's got, even if he doesn't have the coaching qualifications, is he's absolutely passionate about that club.
Yes.
Even though he has said
the region.
Even though he has said they should merge, but. I think the Whitehaven fans will forgive him that if he can get them out.
He's going to be hung, drawn and quartered now.
No, he's been quite open up front. If they ever wanted to be a Super League entity, it has to be the best of the region and not.
Is it Is it a poison chalice for him? Not really, because they're expected to finish at the bottom now anyway.
Because if you can get them out of if you can get them above Swinton and Barrow and Halifax, and they're not involved in either a relegation automatic spot or a playoff for relegation, then he's achieved what he set out to achieve. I don't think we've heard an interview from him yet where he says it's always been my ambition to coach Whitehaven in Super League. I think he's there to do a job over the next few games to get them away from relegation, and they've got a massive game this week away at Dewsbury.
Oh,
which you
talk about a relegation 700 pointer.
Well, you would think, looking at the league table, they would be actually favourites for that, and wins are going to be paramount for those teams at the bottom.
Let's completely go the wrong way about this, because everyone's talking about the championship on the comments, so we may as well stick with it for the minute. Les says, always good to beat Bradford. We're awful and haven't had a half-back pairing basically all season, but we'll take a win, and the Peter Fox trophy. I wish when teams had these trophies for people that they didn't just look like ones they've got from a trophy shop, because it's a bit... I know it costs money to get a proper trophy, but it does look a bit...
It should have been with Peter's hat.
Yeah, stick it in a box.
Yeah.
Like the... isn't the Steve Prescott is a boot, isn't it? And it's a bit of spray paint.
Peter was renowned for his hats.
Or a giant Green Bay Packers shirt in a frame that they have to carry around like the old Australian thing I've seen.
JJ Gilton and Shield.
Yeah, like that. Big Green Bay Packers.
Or just get some people in mud and create an image. That always works.
Yeah. Odson, you do that.
Tina Turner.
Elsewhere in the championship, apart from Featherson winning. Well done, Fev.
In the last second.
Wow,
which aggrieved some Bradford fans, apparently.
Did it? No, I can't believe that. Dewsbury 24, Bradford 31. Sheffield 14, Batley 24. Swinton 20, Halifax 6. Big win for Swinton. You know, this is proof of Mike Eccles' theory that we'll discuss in more detail later. But he said after the win over Hull that if London were not in Super League next year, it'd be a story for 4 minutes, and then we move on to something else. You mentioned the Whitehaven off-field issues with their players, which they didn't do anything about, and I completely forgot about it until you reminded me. So bad lads everywhere, and likewise, Alan Kilshaw putting the Swinton pictures in change room thing. No one cares about it anymore. Well, happened. Gone.
I mean, I believe the investigation's rolling on about that, but
it's still ongoing. To look forward to 2025 when we'll hear more.
I've found the whole outrage about that. I mean, rugby league coaches and teams have been targeting players with injuries going on the field since 1895.
Oh, I think it goes back to the Rorke's test of 1914.
Yeah, I mean,
it didn't happen before we split in 1895. Because obviously, as we know, rugby. Exactly.
I'm pretty sure Cooper Cronk in a grand final had to make some tackles and people yanking his shoulder, even though that was in plaster. I mean, yeah.
Toulouse 12, York 20. Mark Applegarth, super coach, as we said on this program.
Great result.
Wakefield 36, Widnes 12, and Whitehaven 24, Doncaster 24. In League One, Cornwall.
Whitehaven 28.
Oh, 28, sorry. I can't even read numbers in front of me. But the key figure there for Whitehaven, 699. In League One, the President of the Rugby Football League and Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, saw Midlands beat Cornwall 18-6. Hunslet,
which puts Midlands in a very good place to qualify for the playoffs.
If they got promoted, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Although I don't think Jake Mamo's turned out for them yet. Even though they made a big
deal.
Where's Jake Mamo been?
Is he like when West Wales signed Gavin Henson and he played one game?
I think the difference is Jake Mamo actually knows what rugby league is. Yeah.
I don't think he played again this week.
You read that and I'll tell you.
It's a great signing though.
Speaking of,
it was great for PR.
Speaking of Wales, Hunslet 28, North Wales 20, Keighley 12, Oldham 20, and Newcastle 6, Rochdale 78. So Wales reported 1,500 at their grand final stage, so that's more than watched Whitehaven at home, and Swinton at home, and Sheffield at home,
and Newcastle
and Hunslet at home. Now, granted, Hunslet had the disadvantage of some big rugby league games happening about.
Here's a stupid question.
Why? I mean,
why?
We're going to get on the Magic weekend, but
why are academy teams playing each other on a Saturday afternoon at the same time as the first teams are playing at Magic Weekend, when you want everybody to be there to generate this festival atmosphere?
Why are Championship and League One games on, nearby?
Because their seasons are too long. But Hunslet playing at the same time.
But if you want a big event that is for all rugby league, and I know it's a Super League event, and people have their some people don't like Super League, and there's rivalry, but you've got to come together for that. I mean, you saw it there, Phil, and as you did, Rich. You saw Cronulla shirts and South Sydney shirts and Batley shirts and Dewsbury.
Yeah.
That's terrible, wooden spooners. You saw it was a rugby league event. It wasn't,
I mean, which was the year which Toronto played Toulouse at Magic? Because they snuck that in, didn't
2019,
they?
2018?
Possibly. So they could have put Hunslet on the Sunday.
Well,
at 10 in the morning
am I right
or something.
thinking in the first Magic weekend in 2007 that Celtic Crusaders played a League One game?
I don't know.
It might have been the night before, but it was part of.
Which is obviously what I was going to say. Gateshead, Newcastle Thunder did many years, didn't they?
And London Scholars used to do before Wembley. So what do we do for this Magic weekend? Synergy. We play Hunslet at the same time.
Could we have a bit of nines as a warm up? Championship nines as a warm up.
What about a women's element?
Yeah, well, I was going to say
that was missing.
Well, you may not have time. You may not have time for a full game before, but you could have a
showcase,
a small nines competition.
Unfortunately,
both days.
This is where my journalism comes in. Did some research on Instagram. Half the Leeds teams in Ibiza, so they couldn't play. So
I think I told you that. I think I told you that, Rich. But yeah,
the other half.
do you want to claim credit?
That was my journalism, anyway.
Half of them were in.
No, I think we both saw it. Yeah.
But it could have been an exhibition game.
Yeah. And all the Saints.
But Ibiza, Ellen Road, Phil. I mean, it's
Saints,
tough.
The Saints.
You understand?
Saints women were in the crowd.
That's true. Yeah.
Saints women were all there in the crowd. Split over different stands. Some in corporate hospitality.
Jodie Cunningham was having a beer on Saturday. She could have put the boots on.
She was in the poor man's hospitality, because I'm told by sources that the best hospitality was on the other side of the stadium, and our side was the.
So you had Steve-O, Martin Afire in the.
Well, that's what I was told. I mean, I could be wrong. Could be wrong.
It's outrageous.
They've got free hats. So if you did get a free hat, please send one in.
We didn't get a free hat.
No,
we didn't get a free beer.
No, we didn't get Josh Warrington either. Although judging by, I'll tell you what.
Don't mention that again. Come on now.
He was wired up.
That was bloody another gimmick, which is just it's just.
Was this was the coverage of the?
Sky,
yeah, I was in the away end with the Leeds fans, so I didn't see that. But he got excited when there was almost a blue, didn't he?
The problem is. He's not as fit.
It wasn't a pornographic.
That's a fight.
Sorry, over here that means something completely
Get some subtitles. It's like jazz mags. They're a different thing. They're not what you think. Josh Warrington is not the biggest celebrity as we think he is, because I don't think people know many boxers these days. And I don't think he's. I think he's a big rugby. He likes rugby league. So that's great.
He's he's a fairly well-known fighter in terms of British standards, in terms of he has been a world champion.
He's on Sky soon,
and he has a following. But when you say he's going to be there at Monday and Ellen Road for the interview and he doesn't turn up, it kind of.
I just think when
he's a rugby league fan though, he likes rugby league, which is a good thing.
Vegas.
So is Joey Barton, but you don't put him on the front of a magazine anymore.
Yeah, okay, well,
we're talking about Vegas, and they're hoping Tom Brady might be part of the commentary team. Possibly not Josh Warrington.
But that's no knock on Josh Warrington, because he's
obviously
he's a world, as you say, world
get
champion.
Russell Crowe, likes Leeds United, likes rugby league,
like Sam Burgess,
Slamming
Sam, NRL Hall of Fame.
Couldn't have Gareth Southgate.
Gareth Southgate's not doing anything these days.
Not too popular.
Well,
ruined English football, I believe.
But
social media told me.
Not sure. I think he would have been
the devil.
What about an Olympic medal winner?
Yeah, there must be one of those must like rugby league. There's the Irish fella from Leeds, isn't there? The Irish swimmer, he's from Leeds, so could have claimed him. Did he count on the Yorkshire medals chart? Probably, because they claim anyone. The NRL Hall of Fame.
Darryl Halligan's daughter won a medal for Australia.
We've just nicked a cyclist from Australia as well, so that's good news.
Typical.
Well, I know, yeah. Well, we can't nick South Africans.
No, it used to work the other way around. Our stealing went to Australia.
Hey. There's how many people in the British Rugby League Hall of Fame? Is it about 30 or something?
Men's Hall of Fame.
Well, men's and women's, because there's 4 women in there now. So.
Yeah, I think it was about 32.
32.
Something like that.
Why is the Australian Hall of Fame so full? It seems like you just have to turn up and get a shirt on and you're in. Why is there a 2-tier Hall of Fame in Australia? I know you're not representing the NRL or Peter V'landys or anything, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm not a judge. No. I presume it's down to the Immortals, but the fact that the Immortals, which,
Hall of not quite as good as these other fellas.
But that was created by, I think it was a port sponsor, the drink, for rugby league. So that's why they created it. But obviously, that was in the set. I think it was it was probably in the 80s actually. But obviously we've played a lot of games. We've had a lot of great
Port.
players since. Port, you know, the old man's
Yeah.
drinks. Yeah.
Like
But yeah, now obviously the NRL's kind of, it's got a museum and it's got a fancy office out there.
It's got a museum.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you saying
It's not an old decrepit pub.
I think Peter Volandis could build us a museum.
I think you could. So yeah, but now Sam Burgess is in, and controversially Les Boyd is in. So it's
and
it's
broadcasters are in.
broadcasters.
We should have Eddie and Steve in our Hall of Fame.
And the other Eddie. And
Phil Clark.
Ray French.
Phil Clark.
Mark Wilson. Alan Brazil.
Phil Kaplan.
I was going to say something about the NRL now, and I can't remember what it was because I've gone lost on a tangent. But I'm sure I
Are
remember
you going
again.
to talk about Manly's link with Castleford?
No, because we don't understand what it is, do we?
No.
We don't- I mean, we
All
could have
the
read
best
press release.
English talent will be going to
Oh, that's
Freshwater.
it. Surely there must have been other English talent that have made an impact on Australia before Sam Burgess. I mean, I can think of someone related.
Malcolm-
you say
Malcolm
Manly,
Riley,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Not only won
As a player
premierships
and
as a
coach.
player,
Yeah, as
and
player and
I
coach,
think
yeah.
he's the only English
so why is
coach
it-
ever
so-
to have
so
won
why is he not in there?
first grade.
Why's he not in there? I mean, I know these are. I'm not saying Sam Burgess shouldn't be in there.
Also hard as nails.
Yeah. Where's Scully? Why's he not in there? He needs to be in every Hall of Fame going. He's in the West Hall of Fame, isn't he? Well, the Balmain Hall of Fame. So. Gareth Ellis, he's in the West Hall of Fame.
James Crane,
Adrian Moore?
Yeah.
Will be the obvious.
Adrian Moore. I think did he win 2 premierships. Also rearranged a few noses and
Are you making noise when you pick your cup up? Because Steve
Sorry.
Mascord's complaining. You know, we work for
how's Steve's hangover?
we work for Steve now.
Is that why he's complaining?
Yeah, it says who's picking up and dropping something. He's going to do it really quietly now.
Might be meeting his Tim Tam.
The audio will be unlistenable. Usually is. According to the comments last week.
No, but I mean, Hall of Fames are hard, aren't they? Because particularly you're judging play. Well, depending on your age and what footage is available, you're judging players that either you haven't seen or every era is different.
But I do think you have to have definable criteria.
Yes, I agree. I think that gives
and
us
the
some
issue
credibility.
is, here's some names. They're in.
Yeah.
They like on the
Also,
basis of what?
if you were banned for a year for breaking someone's jaw, and then banned for many months for eye gouging someone, does that?
Yeah, but the RFL gave Ben Cockayne a testimonial after he'd been done by the cops, so you know. Stevie's great. He's back home on the couch. Well done, Steve.
Good to see he's working hard.
Did you enjoy Magic Weekend?
The great is that he managed to get home because he was in a stay yesterday.
Before we talk about the Magic... And there wasn't even a media drinks this year, as pointed out in the chicken wing.
Well, there were for some media.
Oh.
We're not obviously popular enough, or
We're rebels.
I'd rather be.
I mean, I had to go home.
some people online, Rich,
Yeah, exactly. I had to go home to the dog. So, you know, she's more
to
important.
go to a food festival.
Yeah, the dog's more important. And the cats aren't, they're just buggers. You know. He's biting me. I'm just trying to sit there watching telly and edit videos, and the cat just keeps biting me, and he doesn't like the biscuits I feed him.
It's a sign of endearment.
Does my head in. We'll get on to Magic after we talk about the NRL buying Super League again. So Peter Volandis comes over with his checkbook, because I assume they still have checkbooks in Australia because they're 20 years behind the time.
Racial.
No, it's Australian, it's all right.
He's still got an access card.
Does he does or does he don't?
Ask your grandkids.
Number one podcast in Mexico, not the
No, in
number one
Australia,
podcast
no,
in Sydney.
Phil Gould, he's offensive. He called them big, strong girls all throughout the state of Oregon. You can't do that. Women.
I think when you're 70 odd, it's kind of,
It's all right. You're allowed to be offensive when you're in your 70s. Can't wait. Fingers crossed. So Peter Volandis comes over with his checkbook. What's he buying? What does he buy if he buys Super League? Apart from some stationery and a website.
Well, that's the existential question that the game has to face.
Because as we know,
Because he'll whatever he buys, he'll want a return on.
And to run, you would say.
And I'm not sure he's looking to buy and rescue Rugby League. I think he's looking to... And first of all, we don't know if he's looking to buy anything.
No.
There is nothing in any story that says the NRL are interested in buying...
But I saw all these tweets saying they're buying Super
They're
League.
very anodyne quotes saying we're at a very early stage of cooperation. It doesn't say anything about anybody buying
we might
anything
as well.
or what they would pay. But you can almost foresee that if Vegas goes well over the next 5 years, which is going to be an audition of the best of Super League, that the NRL might say we need some kind of competitive competition in the Northern Hemisphere to back up, rival and expand into what we're doing in the Southern Hemisphere, because we cannot be the game on our own. That's why they are, whatever people think, they are funding most of international rugby league that's going on this autumn, and they're deciding when it's being announced, and they're underwriting a lot of it, including the World Cup in 2026, the Ashes Tour in 2025. So they've got an expansion mentality at the moment. They're looking for an enhanced television contract, which they need to go to their broadcast partner of choice and say, we can offer you even more than we do at the moment. So you've got expansion on the one hand domestically, you've got the international game being given higher profile, and then you go, right, well, what do we need to do to maintain the supply of talent for all of these new clubs that are coming in, for new markets where we can sell more television rights, commercial partners that can be involved in the sport, not only see their brand on the pitch at the Sydney Football Stadium, but also maybe at, let's say, the Brick Stadium in Wigan. So what they would want to buy would be the very top end of the competition, or not buy, but invest in. So I think that there should be some people who support clubs going, it's not the greatest thing in the world if the NRL get involved, because they really wouldn't want us. The top clubs will be going, that could be our salvation, because we're not making money, and this might be a way, if we're in a slightly different competition where it's the creme de la creme and some investment in areas where the NRL think that the game can grow, like London, which obviously we talk about, and Mike Eccles and what he said, that a market maybe in Wales that they could see. What do they want to do with North America after they've been there for 5 years with Vegas? Might go to another city and they do it for another 5 years, but at some point do they look at what happened in Toronto in terms of building a new audience, not the finance behind that, and say that was a success? Do we go back and do it properly this time? All of that would be what the NRL might be talking about, not that any of us know, but not buying the RFL or the game of rugby league.
But I thought everything was going so well. Magic Weekend was successful. That's what I read. So why would you be looking for a partner if you're flying?
What the NRL should do is Peter V'landys should get onto IMG, because they run this NFL Europe Academy thing, which tries to find talent which can be filtered into the NFL, which grows the game in different markets. And
but you see, that is the other reason why the NRL are as interested as they are in the USA, and interested to the point where it's not just Vegas, it's the Roosters investing in the game, in becoming part of the board of USARL. It's to get talent. They've realised that I don't think the USARL is ever going to be the elite league that is going to break rugby league in the USA. It's going to be a good league. It's going to be great for people that want to play the sport. They're going to have regular fixtures. But we're talking from what I know, which is very little of elite sport in the USA, you're either at the very top or you watch it.
Yeah.
That's how you finance it. There are some sports that will sit along in that community lane and they'll do fine, and the USARL do that. But what they want is the elite, and there are loads of athletes coming out of colleges that will not be professional sports people in the USA that would be perfect. Not just, and this is perhaps another reason why they're interested, not just getting into the NRL, which is oversubscribed with great players anyway, but we certainly need players. We need a new reservoir of talent. And what's the point of having all these combines and creating 5 players who might be able to be professionals if Australia only want one of them? Where are the other 4 going to go? Well, I'm sure we could find places for them in a different looking Super League. So there's loads of reasons why you would want to have a greater say over what's going on in the Northern Hemisphere, but that is not buying the RFL, in my opinion.
No, I think if they were going to invest, they'd want to run things. They're not going to say, here's 50 million quid.
No.
Go and
do like you've always done.
Yeah, because that's failed.
You've got the vote at
we know how that's gone.
We've got the casting vote. Just use them as an example of what happened.
They're not. Yeah, that's. I don't think Peter V'landys, he's many things, but I don't think he's a fool. And that they'll want to run things, and they'll want to put their people in charge.
And again, it goes back to the story that about how Wigan and Warrington got involved in Las Vegas. It wasn't through the auspices or introduction of the governing body. It was a phone call from a chief executive who said, we need to keep generating money. We need to keep our club at the forefront of everything that's happening. We need to get our brand better known in new markets. I'll just ring and see if we can be part of this.
That's quite shocking, though, on many levels.
But also, it tells you that the NRL, ARLC would negotiate directly with clubs and pick off what they want, rather than necessarily say, here's 50 million quid for the whole sport, like...
But surely the RFL and the IMG should be trying to do these sort of things and not leave it to individual clubs.
I wouldn't be surprised, and we have no evidence because they won't give us any interviews. I think that IMG will be involved in this. In whatever the NRL want to buy, I think they would be facilitators because they can see a return on the work that they're doing.
But they had
from those.
They had no involvement in Vegas. I didn't see anyone from IMG at Magic Weekend.
I think their involvement in Vegas is getting TV deals. I wouldn't be surprised if it's they that have introduced free to air.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's the case, but I don't know that for a fact.
But I think IMG, this is exactly the project that they would want to be involved in. I've done a piece on Euro League basketball in the new issue of Forty20 magazine, out now in shops. And IMG's involvement in turning that from what was a relatively successful sport into something that is absolutely massive. And again, there are parallels because some of the teams get A licences and are always in it, and that's your Barcelona's and Bayern Munich's and Panathinaikos and Real Madrid, who you'd always want to be your front-facing clubs. And then there's space for, with the other 6 clubs, there's 2 get promoted from the Euro Cup, and the model and the money that they've made out of taking that from where it was to where it is now 10 years later, and in a similar sort of deal in terms of time frame to Rugby League, negotiating the TV contracts, getting the sponsors in, looking to take it to the Middle East, talking about expansion franchises in London, but it's got to be right. It's not just bringing somebody in because you like the name of the city, and all of that has the hallmark of IMG. The same guy who is involved in it with IMG is also the bloke that looks after this Rugby League agreement. So it can
to Sydney,
but it can be done remotely. So I think IMG can see where there is opportunity. An opportunity would be the NRL buying the elite end of Super League and creating a new competition that needed new TV rights, new commercial deals, and I think Vegas is almost a blueprint for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if IMG are working. I know that certainly the ARLC do use IMG for some of their negotiations.
Rugby League influencer Steve Mascold says Alistair from IMG was at Magic. So,
here we go.
Drinking.
What the sport obviously needs to do is get Chris Radlinski, who obviously sent the email to Peter Volandis and got off his backside and did something, and Danica together, because she's on the top trump and everything, so they know where to get where water doesn't, so they could be the people at the forefront of this Rugby League revolution. Would it be Australia and England, Britain, whatever, completely different sports markets? Is that fair? Does Australia have it doesn't have one dominant code, whereas here everything is association football.
Yes, everything. It doesn't have one dominant code. It depends where you are, what your background is, where you live. But yeah, it has it's always had 4 football codes, and cricket is arguably the national sport. And as you know, cricket remains it's much more popular in Australia than it is in the UK, for example. But it depends on what market. But right at this point, as we sit in August 2024, Rugby League in the UK in Australia is in probably the best position it has been. I don't know if ever is right, but ever in terms of money, right. In terms of finances,
in terms of viewership,
I think the late 80s, early 90s were a massive growth period. The Tina Turner campaign, everything, new clubs coming in, Newcastle, Brisbane, etc. Then the Super League war happened, and they wasted millions upon millions on a civil war.
Was that like the Super League split with the RFL? Wasted millions?
No, that didn't waste much at all, actually. But I think we can look at that now and say, okay, that happened, but 30 years on, the game's actually kind of recovered now and is flying, and we're going back to Perth, and we're looking at another New Zealand team and maybe a PNG team, and this is things that we did in the early 90s when we had an Adelaide team and we had.
Well, you would never have thought that New Zealand Warriors, who haven't had the most successful season as it turned out,
terrible,
would sell out every home game, which has never happened before, and would be more popular from a ratings point of view on TV than the All Blacks.
It's a really interesting time in terms of New Zealand. I mean, that is a different market, but rugby union, particularly Super Rugby, has gone off the boil, and the All Blacks internationally are not the number one force they always have been, and the Warriors have just gotten more popular and more popular.
But when you look at the fact that they've got that market in New Zealand, they've got, in terms of viewership, particularly of Origin men and women now, probably outranking AFL this year.
Well, TV-wise, in terms of pay TV, the NRL's always been a better, higher rating TV product. But the AFL has the bigger geographical reach with 2 teams in WA, a team in Adelaide. And it's also had bigger crowds because it's generally played in bigger ovals. Where
are the NRL going to get bigger geographical reach? Coming here. And having the British market and the French market, let's not forget.
And also another team in New Zealand and potentially a team in
and
PNG.
Something happening in the US which they will capitalise on.
Yeah.
Even this is where players.
You made the point last week after the Alan Brazil stuff that people in Australia don't realise the size of rugby league and the status of rugby league here.
No.
I don't think people outside our bubble in the English sports media realise what's going on with both rugby codes in Australia at the moment, where one is here and the other's going that way.
I said on social media, rugby league is the number one sports show. No, it's not. It never has been.
It is in Papua New Guinea.
Even in Sydney,
they've got cricket now. Yeah,
even in Sydney, not that long ago, in the inner west, which was a rugby league heartland, you've got Sydney Swans and Western Sydney, and pubs are taking out, putting on AFL. I mean, it breaks my heart, but it's not. The AFL put a team in Gold Coast to essentially, take away from Queensland, and I think they've spent something like 200 million, 100 million pounds, like. It's a very bitter war, but the NRL is having a lot of success at the moment, which it hasn't previously.
By the same token, though, the NRL is now getting into the kind of schools that rugby union have always dominated.
It's having more the pick of the athletes.
But also, the one thing that the AFL have not got and will not get is an international element.
They've tried, but they've failed.
So if you're Peter V'landys and you're sitting around going, right, well, we've got the Pacific, and I don't think that's now going to go to rugby union. I think, we've got that, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted a Pacific Championship. It's
going to be announced eventually. And
they know.
Well, I saw a story. It was in Stuff. The website, the New Zealand website. Tonga's playing New Zealand in early November, I think. That's smart. Right.
Maybe they read it. That's where they got it from.
But they see that, and they see a sellout amounts. So they say Tonga are an entity. Tonga. They can make money.
But if you think the one thing that AFL haven't got is an international program, and they're never going to have it.
Yep.
And V'landys can say, we've got the Pacific, we've got New Zealand. We're now expanding to the point where we can say we're in Australia in terms of if you want to see a game. The PNG team might be part-sighted in Darwin, so that's another territory that
we've been taking games at Darwin. Parramatta have been playing there regularly. They get good crowds.
So then if you say, but then how do we consolidate this position and make sure that not only that we start doing things that the AFL could never do? We get a competition in the Northern Hemisphere that includes England, possibly Wales, France, and then we look to 5 years in Vegas, and we might even have a plan after that 5 years to how we're going to. Suddenly the AFL are, to all intents and purposes, in terms of interest and reach, blown out of the water. But
we have an internet. We have the Ashes. We just need England to be improving. Great Britain, England.
England and Brian Carney.
Tommy Bastards, whatever you call them.
Steve O reckons it's going to be Great Britain.
Well, it doesn't. I don't think a lot of listening to many podcasts, people like Shane Webb who don't know the difference. It doesn't really matter from the Australian point of view, but they need Great Britain or England to be competitive. They need them to, and that would.
But they will be more competitive.
Look at 2005 in the Ashes in the cricket. Well, I think Australia had the Ashes for 16 years or something.
2003 in the Rugby League, all of the games were settled with the last try. Unfortunately, they all went to Australia, but it was the most competitive series. Plus, you're going to have at least 10 players, I would think, that are playing in the NRL. It's automatically already more competitive.
Yeah, but I think they need, instead of 10, they probably need 30.
Well, there's
We need to bring back Dr. Marwan Kukash's idea of having the British Bulldogs when he was going to buy the Newcastle
Cumbrian
Knights.
Lakers.
Did he say that on our programme, or was that?
was that Liverpool?
Liverpool?
But after
Cumbrian
50
Lakers.
years, if Great Britain or England won the Ashes, that would, it would be massive.
But you need
You've
competitive
got New
games.
Zealand, who are arguably better than they've ever been. You've got Tonga, who's beaten New Zealand, beaten Great Britain, beaten Australia.
Yep.
You've got Samoa, who have, unbelievable players.
Got to get revenge off them. Got to get revenge. That's what it's been promoted as, revenge for that game from
But
a
I
few years
just
ago
think
now.
England stroke Great Britain, which is still England,
England
will be more competitive by virtue of the fact that you can look at some of the performers in the NRL like a Herbie Farnworth and say, if they're fit, if they're flying, people will go and watch that.
Oh,
Because
definitely.
A, they're at the level, and B, they've now heard of them.
I think looking back though, and when you look back, you can look back misty-eyed and whatever, but 2017, that team, that was such a good opportunity for England.
It was.
You look at the talent, you have Graham's, you Sam Burgess's,
Absolutely.
Robley, O'Loughlin, Callum
And they
Watkins.
only lost the World Cup final in Australia 6-0. That's about as
I was at the game. I was at the
close
game.
as you can get.
Yeah, it was an amazing game. But, we haven't the two teams haven't played each other.
No. But I think, you stick a Dom Young in there that people love watching on a week-to-week basis. Kai Pearce-Paul, who's had a really good debut season. I think we can be more competitive than we've been for a while on a 3-match series because the best of our players are playing over there.
Much like 2006 has lauded that result of the SFS. I mean, something like that would be huge.
Yep.
Yeah, it would revitalise the game in this country as well.
And it would make it easier for the NRL to buy proportions of the competition.
Can we just have some dates and venues for next year, Phil? Yeah. Not that you're in charge, but...
they will announce the Asia Pacific possibly end of this week or next.
Just a week before the games are on.
And then they'll think about doing 2025.
Is it too hard to do?
Yes, they can only do one thing at a time. So they didn't want anything to interfere with Origin, so we didn't get the announcement.
Because if we'd have said Tonga are playing New Zealand, people wouldn't have gone to watch.
I used a word in my
New South Wales
column today, shambolic. I'd like to reuse that, please.
I think I enjoyed your piece on Magic Weekend. I thought it was fair. And
I've never been accused of being fair.
Me and you were only there on Saturday, so we can't talk about Sunday.
Yes.
You had more important things to do. I had more important things to do. Phil didn't. He was there.
I don't have anything more important to do than rugby league.
You've got to write the whole magazine.
No, I mean Magic Weekend. I've always loved Magic Weekend. I think and I've been to Etihad and I've been to Newcastle. I think I've been every year since 2014, off the top of my head. It just didn't, and the atmosphere was quite good on Saturday. I thought, when you had 30,000 in a capacity of 37,000, but
also
it didn't have
close to the pitch.
Yeah, close to the pitch, but it didn't have the same feel. It didn't have the same excitement. The games, I mean, the London Hull FC game, while it was very entertaining, and the fact that London won kind of was quite comical in a way, standard-wise.
Well done for upsetting the Hull fans, by the way.
That's all right. That's standard. Yeah. And then
that's standard for this programme.
The derby, both teams missing a lot of players. It was a bit flat.
Yeah.
Apart from a bit of Jack Farrimon brilliance. And then the final game, that was a decent game. There was a bit there, but I was actually in with the Leeds fans, so that was an interesting. I hope Chris Kendall didn't hear anything because.
Well, it's all right because he just has to read the Yorkshire Evening Post because it's his fault. The Chris Kendall show says the Yorkshire Evening Post.
Yeah, I mean we can talk about decisions, and I think one of the big ones, the Fusatua yellow card, he did get wrong, but anyway, it just didn't seem, and obviously there was a lot of negativity online, and those seats, boy, they are cramped. I think Phil, you would probably be comfortable, but anyone who's over, no, I'm talking about the fan seat, not the media seat.
The press benches were
anyone who's over 5'5", you're not going to sit 10 hours in there.
Fine. Anfield was the same, wasn't it?
Yeah, Anfield's not great.
I don't think. Well, Anfield wasn't popular either, was it?
No. Everyone loves Newcastle. That's the problem. Is nothing is now going to match up to Newcastle because everyone loves Newcastle.
The whole thing is, what do you want from Magic Weekend?
And you summed up what it is.
Question number one. It's not what we had this weekend, not where we're going to go, but what do we want to do with it? We spoke to Robert Hicks on Saturday. Almost he didn't know he was being interviewed.
Most positive man in rugby league.
Tell him he was. And he was
we did tell him
pointing out
plenty of times.
the calendar is a jigsaw. So what do you want from Magic, and where would it sit in the calendar? Because now you want the World Club Challenge to be a permanent part of the calendar, which I think the NRL do, and that'll be one of the first things that they agree.
As they should.
You want Vegas to be part of the calendar to open the season for them. You want the Challenge Cup to be big. You know, one of the things IMG did say in the one press conference they did was we want to build up the Challenge Cup. You want is Magic an event that you then want to put in between the Challenge Cup and the playoffs? It sort of works in terms of the fixtures.
Yeah.
If it's a little bit later in the season because they've got more riding on. Unfortunately, in this round of fixtures, loads riding before we went there, but this will be exciting because every game's got something riding on it except the last one. Didn't get a great game out of any of them.
No. Well,
We had one great performance. Hulk were absolutely outstanding, but none of the games were captivating.
No, which is unusual.
And that's not the fault of the RFL. They cannot be.
No.
But I think.
Let's blame the RFL. Let's blame the RFL.
You want to have it around about this time in the season. The kids are on school holiday.
No. Apparently that's a bad thing. People told me.
Because they go on holiday. Well, tough. You know.
But I think if you announce it far enough in advance, you can actually do both.
I was being facetious. Yeah.
And you've also got to bear in mind that Catalan away is a trip now for all the Super League teams as well, and possibly Toulouse away if they got promoted as well.
You don't have to do every game.
Exactly. But so you need to decide what do you want from Magic Weekend. You also need to decide, do you want it as an additional round or do you want it as part of the season? Because if you want it as part of the season, then clubs will take they'll earn money because the whole success of Ellen Road was they made money. But also, the teams that are designated as the home teams will lose some money. So you've got to balance it out. And is it an expansion tool? In which case, what is the plan?
Clearly it's not.
What's the plan for expansion after you've been there?
There is no plan.
Or is it just a really good day out for the 55,000 people that would go to a round anyway? And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. That's the thing. If it's just a fun piss-up for everyone, that's fine. That's good. But if it is, you don't hold it at Ellen Road. And even though it made money, which is fantastic,
and what they need more than anything.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'm fully in support of that. But you can perhaps find a way that doesn't alienate all of your fans. And the fact that when you have on a Sunday empty stands and a lot of the fan base who are not happy, do you keep pissing off your core audience? I don't think you do.
The other thing is that it's called Weekend.
Not Magic Day.
I don't think more people came because it was Weekend rather than weekend.
The kids did.
But they hate vowels.
If it's a weekend, you need to make it the possibility of being a weekend, not an hour's drive from most of the teams that are playing there.
Well, that's why
it's only 40 minutes for me.
But that's what I always said about Newcastle. It was perfect because it was far enough away that you could spend a weekend, but close enough that you could go for the day.
Destination location.
And you have everything on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Now at Ellen Road, you've got Subway, chip shop, one pub.
And you can take your photo outside. Take a selfie outside the former Radio Yorkshire.
Chip shop who puts its prices up on match day.
Cheeky. And then you've got the bars in the stadium that look like they've come out of a 1956.
Yeah, and you can't do a proper fan zone because you haven't got the space.
Well, we can't do a proper fan zone full stop because we go back to the same well we've gone back to a million times.
At the Etihad,
there's plenty of space.
We did have a better fan zone.
There's space around Newcastle, wasn't there? There's that little bit where the
So I think we need to work out, is it just for a fun away day?
And can we make money?
Or is it or is it an expansion tool?
In which case, what's the plan for expansion?
If we don't have any plan, then why keep doing it?
Yeah, well,
that's the thing.
And the other thing I felt, particularly on the Sunday, where if there is a criticism, we did get the fixtures wrong because we got exactly what we expected. We had Super Saturday, all the great games, all the big teams, all well supported, and not so fantastic Sunday in terms of the average attendances of the teams that were there, and you ended up with a virtually empty stadium with the last game because it had nothing much riding on it. So, we need to be careful about how we structure it so that it looks right for the broadcast.
People didn't want to go to Ellen Road, Phil.
But the other thing we need to do is give them more entertainment. So we were talking downstairs about the 100, which is not something I've watched other than one game that I came across by accident. But between innings, there's a band. There's the stage with a band on. There's themed things you can do, and we didn't do any of that. And I know it's money, but if we're going to have it as a as you say, a weekend away, we need to entertain people to the point where 65,000 want to go, not 55,000.
It's not just
we offered very
it's
little.
not just the entertainment though.
It's
in
the
the
whole
game,
experience.
it's actually marketing the event. So Leeds United,
Yeah.
1.2 million Instagram followers, 1 million Twitter followers. How many posts did they have of promoting Magic Weekend to their followers in the week before?
And I assume they'll have made some money from the.
How many,
the,
Rich?
the-
How many?
I'm going to guess it's the same amount that 5 Live put out before it, and they're one of our partner
Yeah.
broadcasters.
Well, and then we could
But-
talk
but
about
also-
Talk Sport.
Exactly,
We could talk
exactly.
about Talk
And
Sport, a
people-
partner broadcaster,
Yeah.
and that Joe Batchelor interview, which was atrocious.
Car crash.
Yeah.
But exactly what Alan Brazil does every day.
And 3 million people.
Which is not to
listen.
defend it. But at least he was on, and they tweeted a video, and people watched it.
And it wasn't the only promotion that they did.
And
But I was in Leeds.
it's ridiculous.
I was working in Central Leeds for 3 days last week. Walked around and didn't see one poster.
No.
Didn't see
Well,
anything.
this is the thing. If Nottingham,
What is the point?
But if
What's the
Nottingham
point?
Forest have made the bid that we were told that they had, and you want to sign up with them and think that's going to be a really good city for our fans to
It's
go.
a lovely
and
city.
We might get a few more to go if we make it. But one thing we need to sign up with our partner is they promote it.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the money to do it. You know, one of the reasons it isn't all over Leeds is because they haven't got the money to. But Leeds United as the partner could have done something. Nottingham Forest as the partner. The agreement needs to say you will help us promote this in the city and through your social media channels.
Surely they have a player, Leeds United have a player on their books who's from Yorkshire, who's from the area, who could perhaps come and talk to the media about rugby league.
But Leeds Rhinos and Leeds United did that.
But they didn't have anyone.
Why didn't they?
That was a club thing. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't put
But it
to
should have-
all the media, the
It should
national
have been.
media.
It should,
Yeah.
and that's how it should
Who's the
work.
person who's ringing out this outlet and saying, "Oh, do you want to do an interview? Do you want to do a story on this?" There isn't any of that, Phil.
And that's partly down to lack of human resource.
I don't think it's a lack of human resource because it doesn't take much for one. You know, Maurice Lindsay used to do that himself. You
The
know,
world's changed. There's loads of different.
we still have phones.
there's loads of
We still have
different media
emails.
outlets.
Yeah, it's just
You need a troop of people and content coming out of your ears, but
you need some
I
ability
think
and some
you,
ideas.
you need the partner that the venue that you're partnering with who is going to make money. The reason you've gone there is because they can see the ability to make money out of your event to help you promote that event. So the first thing I would be doing if I was talking to Nottingham Forest, if that is a viable alternative.
I reckon this is just
Dublin,
Matt Newsom.
not a viable
No,
alternative.
no,
Nottingham
no,
Forest,
can't afford it.
viable
I think
alternative.
2018, Ralph Rimmer said New York.
Yeah.
When's that happening?
Well,
Not a
he's got an OBE now. He's
Paris.
gone. He's doing the RFU's bidding.
Not a viable
It wouldn't
alternative.
possibly be spin, would it?
Spin.
No.
I think
Deflection.
we've got to, at the moment, going back to the history of Magic Weekend, it went to Cardiff originally because Cardiff Tourist Board put up a lot of money
Which is great.
and they got spent back in the city, so that money was justified. It worked so well that Edinburgh topped what Cardiff were prepared to pay.
Which is also great.
We're now in a position whereby Newcastle want us back. It didn't work this year because the stadium wasn't available.
Which is unfair why people criticise it
No,
being
they
somewhere
just couldn't
when
do
could
it
be.
because
Yeah.
the Premier League season was kicking off on a weekend. We wanted to do it. The ground wasn't available, but they are back in the frame, and the word is favourites for the next Magic Weekend. And I think again, when you sit down with them and say, well, if you want it and you're going to make £6 million for businesses in Newcastle out of it, you've got to help us promote it. And then say to Nottingham, well, this is what Newcastle are prepared to pay. What are you prepared to pay? And then you get Bristol on the phone going, well, actually, I know you're not really a rugby league area, but we've just seen the amount of money that's been spent in
Do you have the Cook
Newcastle
Islands
and
versus USA? We could do that again.
But that's how you become profitable.
Phil says Nottingham Forest and Stuart Pearce. He would promote the hell out of it. He loves rugby league. He's always on the telly. They always show him there. Les says, what interview? Joe Batchelor. Go look on Talk Sports Twitter. It's on there. Saints tweeted it as well. They do more coverage of Women's Super League than a lot of
Absolutely.
anyone else. Which is ridiculous.
But that is, they do a great job
Yeah.
with
So
their
it's-
Super League coverage.
that's why
of people who know Super League.
Yeah.
But that kind of interview, we've seen that from a lot of national media in the UK, and it's disrespectful. The game
But
is treated with contempt.
You've also got to look at the profile of the person that was doing the interview, and that is his modus operandi.
But you got also.
Sadly, he's in the Radio Hall of Fame for being stupid.
But Phil, if you went to the newsagents today and you bought whatever it is, the 7 national newspapers. How many of them have got Magic Weekend stories or Rugby League stories in them? Hardly any.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Some of those journalists who write for those papers were quick to slag off that, but there's a radio station who are actually
But
putting.
in fairness, those journalists they don't
Oh
dictate.
no.
Yeah.
But they're quick to criticise.
But what's being done to engage those medias? Nothing. That's the problem.
But I think part of that is the partner.
Not as embarrassing.
Well, no, we can't outsource everything.
And your point
it's the
about
wrong attitude,
Leeds
Phil.
United need to do more, to me, is more important than we who have no resource at the moment should have done more.
But that's a conversation. That's not resource. That's whoever at Super League RFL
But
in a senior position saying, okay, we will take this, but we need you to do
What do you
a
want?
post A, B, C. We need a minute video from Patrick Bamford saying, come to Magic Week. You know what I mean?
Which,
It's not hard.
Leeds
It's
managed
not
to
hard.
arrange. Because Bamford was one of the people that was on their video.
But Leeds Rhinos have, 100,000 followers, and Leeds United have 1 million.
But again,
simple mathematics.
But why wasn't that taken by the governing body and or the sponsor and used to promote the event?
On Super League Plus.
There's redundancies and retrenchments, and I think they're long overdue, and new blood is needed.
Robbie Rhino. Hang on.
Robbie.
Is that the son of? We found him. What
do you call a baby rhino?
Robbie Rhino says Nottingham Forest is not viable for disabled or wheelchair supporters, but it will be okay for everyone else. But that's okay. People from level playing field say it's rubbish. So there's a negative against Nottingham Forest.
Due diligence would need to be done. We pride ourselves on our inclusivity, and the one absolutely shining bright spot of both days was the LDRL and the PDRL.
That was fantastic.
In the middle, the cheers and the joy that they had from playing in front of a big crowd who was so supportive of everything they did was worth going for that. But why we haven't put clips of that out?
Yeah, and why there has been I think one on Super League.
The game.
Yeah.
And some individuals with Jenna Brooks interviewing Elliot Mincher. Yeah, that's fit. I mean, that's one of the things that make Magic Weekend special and why it should be kept.
Rugby League special.
Definitely, without doubt. Yeah.
There's not to do near Ellen Road, says Paul. So you're stuck in a cramped seats for hours, never again. I think the problem with it is, as you say, is what is it? And you look at the 100, and it's a completely made up competition with completely made up teams in made up places that don't exist. And
that's modern sport, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it gets some crowds. I don't know how many of It's a package of entertainment.
That's the thing.
We don't offer that.
And the one thing that struck home yesterday, particularly during the last game, which was a tough watch, when you've watched 5 over the weekend and the 6th one is probably the lowest quality of them all and has nothing riding on it and the least number of people in the stadium, is you need to get away from this is the reason why you've come. You need to be so pleased that you've been here because you had a band that you saw that you'd never heard of before. You had streamers being thrown, T-shirts being fired into the crowd, or you had a slightly bigger gap between games, so you could do more on the field of the LDRL and the PDRL that we had between just the middle game.
You catch up with people you haven't seen all year,
which we did.
Yes,
but it was hard to do and took too much time because you knew there was another game starting. So you need to have the reason for being there, because it's like when you go to Catalan. You have such a good time around the 80 minutes that the 80 minutes become less important. They're not the reason you go.
Yes.
You go to have an experience that you wouldn't normally have, to meet people you wouldn't normally meet, to appreciate a culture you wouldn't normally come across. That's what Magic Weekend should be. And you can't just rely on, well, the games are going to be good. And as it turns out this weekend, we're struggling to find, other than somebody biting somebody, what the big headline is.
Don't buy it, apparently. Don't buy it. If we can explain how...
But there aren't rugby stories out of this weekend because the games didn't really provide enough of them.
Well, if you explain how Kyle Flanagan gets 4 weeks when Stephen Crichton refuses to appear at the hearing or say that he bit me, but Mike Lewis goes live on TV and say he bit me, and the footage is very similar. How does one get off and not?
Is the footage very similar? I've not seen the footage.
I mean, the Kyle Flanagan Stephen Crichton footage was Flanagan lying on the turf with Crichton's nose in his mouth, but that he put his nose in my mouth, and I
haven't read all the details, but it looks as though Lewis puts his hand in the mouth of, perhaps inadvertently.
Yeah, the footage. Yeah, it's an unusual case.
So,
but does that mean it's okay to bite the finger?
No, it might be a reflex action. You don't know. If I now stick
like a
my
toddler
hand in your face, your instinct might be. But
no, I'm not. I'm not 6 months old, Phil. I wouldn't do that.
If you mic up Sam Burgess, will he act differently than if you don't mic up Sam Burgess?
But what I'm saying is, the one thing you cannot guarantee is the quality of the game, and this weekend proved that. So you need to make the event 100 times better than it was in terms of an event.
So when
I think you've got to excite fans, and Ellen Road didn't excite fans.
And part of that is the venue.
And what's the stuff around the game? You know, the fan zone is pathetic.
Yeah, and if you're going to have a fan zone,
let's not use people who
were
never relevant.
Let's not have a 4-piece umpire band on the touchline twice and claim that's entertaining.
I will say one good thing. Pints for only £5.50. That was good.
Here's the thing. So you mentioned this downstairs, Phil. The 100, which is again made up thing. Their media partners, Sky, heard of them. BBC, heard of them. And part of the BBC deal must be that they provide entertainment of various parts. Now, at the final, they had Zara Larson. She's famous. I don't know any of her songs, but she's famous. But I probably play them on the radio. But at every game, they've got a new and upcoming band or a DJ or something. And what have we got? Nothing. You know, they had a brass band at Wakefield yesterday. I mean, I wasn't there, but you know, it's great for Wakefield. And it builds up an atmosphere outside the ground. But if you're selling it, this is an event. It's not an event. It's just 3 rugby games. And
we've got a professional boxer in the stands.
Yeah, saying, "Oh, I got him," or whatever.
Yeah,
start with the game.
Extolling the physical side of the game, which we're just trying to play down a little bit at the moment.
But where's what is our plan? I know the problem with if you do entertainment, you have to spend money.
I think
possibly
you do unless it's BBC introduced.
Yeah, and then you've got some kind of deal with
I think
we've got a broadcast partnership with the BBC. Why did they not take any of the games at Magic Weekend? Wigan St Helens, big game. Obviously, it was disappointing in the end.
I imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine under the Sky deal, they probably have exclusive rights to Magic. But on the whole BBC deal, I mean, only my opinion, but it's been very disappointing from the change from Channel 4 for what we were essentially sold, let's say the Rugby League public, for what it's been very disappointing and underwhelming.
And the next game they're having, bizarrely, is Wigan and Hull, which again, a game that has very little riding on it.
This Sunday.
On the BBC.
Is it? I didn't even know. But I mean, they haven't had a game in ages, and you don't really see much promotion. You don't see them doing stories.
And again, I know that in Manchester was it Saturday night, all the Olympians were fated. But you could have had a local Olympian at the opening game of Magic on the pitch. You know, that doesn't really take a huge amount of organising, and because all the Olympics are on the BBC, you use your contacts there to say, can we have the bloke from, was it Harrogate, who won a bronze medal in whatever gymnastics?
Was there anyone famous in the crowd mic'd up to do Huddersfield Castleford? Maybe Yvette Cooper or something, I don't know. Ed Bowles.
Sorry, I thought you said Crowd and Huddersfield and Castleford at the same time.
Patrick Stewart?
And if we're getting former Rugby League TV presenters to do fan zones, we may as well get Richard Madeley, because at least they'll get some coverage then. Say something controversial.
Alan Brazil.
Get him. See, London should invite him to their next game.
Yeah, of course.
Although, if they give him a free bar, it might be.
I was going to say, it wouldn't be hard to invite him. Just give him a free bar.
No, I think they'd lose money.
But you know, they did something. They did something on other programmes.
Well, I think the other thing is Hawksby and Jacobs, which is their afternoon programme, had about 3 interviews, and they were very respectful because the two of them actually like rugby. Well, wouldn't you invite? I know it's the Premier League weekend, they all support, but neither of their teams were playing on Saturday that they support. You could and should have had them in the ground.
Well, they did the show for Warrington, didn't they?
They were invited and didn't want to come, but
they could have got a free hat. And
that's who we need to be cultivating. You know, a message on the screen from Stuart Pearce saying, "I know I'm at the opening of the Premier League this weekend, but I'd really love to be with you at Ellen Road." It's all it needs, isn't it?
Adrian Dunn likes Rugby League. He wrote a book.
Just to make it feel like more of an event for the people that are there.
The problem is they've done results in alphabetical order. So I've got to remember in what order they went. Hull FC 4, London Broncos 29. This was hilarious, wasn't it? Because Hull FC, I tell you what,
biggest cheer of the Saturday was getting behind London. It was like there was 30,000 London fans.
I don't want to take anything away from London, so I will say London deserve all the praise. And their coach afterwards said, we weren't great. We weren't great.
It wasn't a great game.
We but they won, so that's great.
And in Josh Rourke, they have a player that's in as good a form as anybody in the game.
Don't know where he gets into the Wakefield team next year.
Fullback, I assume.
Well, he can't move Max Jarrett. He's the golden boy now. I don't know if he's broken Neil Fox's record yet. But London 29, Hull 4. Who is to blame for Hull FC? Because it can't be the coach, because he's not actually in charge. He's just
Tony Smith.
He's just sitting on the chairs for a bit. That was an interesting press conference, wasn't it?
But that's the issue, because one of the things he said, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, when clearly he's got to the point where he doesn't want to keep justifying the unjustifiable, was he basically said, there's some things I can't say to players that I'd like to say because I know I'm not going to be in this position next year.
Now, we can't...
And that's one of the reasons why they are what they are.
We can't blame the director of rugby, as much as people might want us to.
He's building a team for next year.
And
so he's tried to salvage this year by moving on some of the recruits that they should never have signed for this year and bringing in some other players, and there aren't a lot of bad.
Maybe in 12 months' time we'll be saying...
52 players, Phil.
I know, it's astonishingly...
I mean, how can you
recruitment.
expect a team... You just throw in new players, or combinations you build in pre-season, partnerships.
The only common denominator is the person that owns the club, who signs the cheques and promises the earth and doesn't have a structure there at the moment to deliver any of that.
Just in case anyone's watching from Hull FC, we're not anti-Hull FC. Just want to point that out.
No, but they are a talking point, aren't
they? Not only have they got 52 players, but they took up half of the press box before the game, and it was very empty afterwards.
Rich was wearing a Hull KR shirt before we started filming.
No, I don't like Hull KR either. Sorry, Sid, but they've messed up their things massively in the last few weeks. Imagine in football, Premier League football does this laughing gas thing, which apparently is illegal according to the BBC article I read earlier, and Spurs suspend him for a week. God knows what they'd have done if he'd have retweeted something dodgy. And they've got a new contract in Rugby League, as we discussed earlier. So what is Hull FC are just a basket case, and were there to be actual proper relegation this year, which everyone seems to want, then they would be in trouble, very much in trouble. And what people say, Hull FC big club, prove it to me.
Well,
haven't won the championship for 30 odd years.
At the moment, not even the biggest club in Hull.
No, 40 odd years since winning the championship.
I do think some of the kids that they've got coming through, if they don't overexpose them in this period where it could damage them, are the future. I think Lewis Martin is a really good winger. He looks excellent. Logan Moy has shown up. Jack Charles physically probably not ready, but if you look after those players and you nurture them and you get the right ones around them, which I don't know if they're signing the right players, we'll know that next
they're
year.
not hard. I know we can't judge yet, but they're signing half the league team who are currently out of the playoffs. I mean, they're above Hull.
I think you can question quite a few of the signings when you're looking at a lot of players who are well over 30, who have got their best years behind them. I think there's some questionable signings there.
I think they've looked at what can we do in the short term that will make us better, that will make sure we win a lot more games than we've won this year, and that is to sign some experienced players, to buy a bit of time for these young talent to come through. So I can see why if John Asiata is as fit as he was playing for Lee against Salford this week for most of next year, he clearly will add something to that whole team, because he is undoubtedly a leader.
So there's one.
No, but the thing is, I don't know if I would have paid a 3-year £250,000 contract for somebody who's
Lee didn't.
No. So, but I don't think you could. This whole team this year making the decision to change their coach, to get rid of all of the imported players that they've got, to change the roster, to change the culture, to appoint a coach that isn't coming in until next year, so you've got a coach in a holding position this year, that is a recipe for the kind of disaster that they've got at the moment.
Maybe you could look at, say, Huddersfield, and Luke Robinson. It's not really sort of affected him, though, has it? I mean, I'm sure it has affected him in some ways, but he's doing a much better job in the short term to manage that.
Yeah, and he's only lost Luke Yates.
Yes. So, who was the captain? Who's a very big
but he's working with the group
Yeah.
of players that he's been working with for a long time.
He's not brought in a load of players.
And if he can get a tune out of them because he thinks he knows how to play the instrument better, then that's what we're seeing. But still, I'm not convinced that they're hitting the potential they should have with the personnel that they've got.
Perhaps not, but I don't think the answer is a revolving door of players where you...
And that's why Hull are in the position...
Anyone who's a professional rugby league player in the world gets to go.
The London situation, part of which Mike Eccles, again, very eloquent and heartfelt in his post-match press conference. The fact that he's kept a team together that every week is breaking apart is a massive kudos to him. And if he doesn't stay at London, he's got to be at the top of somebody looking for a coach. I mean, I know Huddersfield haven't appointed
He's
anyone.
the accidental coach, isn't he? He's a conditioner.
But,
he didn't want to be coach.
But he's
obviously
extremely
No,
good at what he's... and I think Luke Robinson should get the Huddersfield job, but the next one that comes up, Mike Eccles has got to be a candidate.
But I think we could talk about... We could do a whole programme on London.
Well, we will at the end of the season.
I think
when their indicative grading
it's
becomes
a
an actual
it's a wider issue, and you
It's
know
a
this.
huge
You've been following them probably since 1980 in Fulham.
Yeah.
I was only born in '81, so I wasn't following them. But you can't just outsource London as a market to David Hughes and say just build a club and good luck with that.
No.
You've got to put
Which
things
is
around.
Why, if going back to what we were talking about, if the NRL bought into
they would invest in London.
They would do with London what News Limited have done with Melbourne, and said if you are a very important part of what we're trying to achieve because you're the capital city, and we need to look at what your brand is, we need to look at how you get the name over, but we need to do what effectively Brisbane Broncos did when it became London Broncos, and that was arguably its most successful period. Second in Super League, got to a Challenge Cup final. We need to do that again, and we need to ring fence you. We need to make sure that some of the top Australian talent comes over. We need to make sure there's a real centre of excellence around all of the youth in the south of England, not just London. It all feeds in, and there's a proper path. You can't do that if you leave that to David Hughes.
Well, I'm quite surprised. We talked just before about, and Rich mentioned it earlier, the Manly Castleford partnership. So Manly's coach is Anthony Seibold, who played for London Broncos.
He did.
The CEO is Tony Mestrov, who played for London Broncos.
He's a good player for it.
The head conditioner is John Clark, who played for London Broncos. London Broncos have got, off the top of my head, only one ex-player in the NRL, but Kai Pearce-Paul. They've had others. Dan Sargentson. I would imagine a partnership with London would make a lot more success because you've got access to talent that is quite different from in the north of England. And I think if you want to make London work, much like Melbourne Storm did, you send your Cooper Cronks, your Billy Slaters, your Cameron Smith. So the equivalent would be Jack Faramond and Harry Robertson going to London. Obviously, that's not going to happen. No. But there'd need to be some sort of initiative from head office to say, okay, it costs more to live in London. You're going to get a salary cap dispensation. You can spend a little bit.
And you're not going to get relegated.
Exactly. Like with Catalans, what was it?
3 years.
Yeah. So you give them... But the thing is, as you know, Phil, and Rich knows... The other clubs will never go for that.
Which is why the NRL can come in and say to the top clubs,
we're running things.
We're going to give you £6 million quid each. You're safe. We want you to be part of a franchise. But the rest of the money isn't going to the way Rugby League is set up at the moment. It's going to London. It's going to Wales because we think there's a big market in
Toulouse.
Talent. Well, possibly. I mean, again, I think
there's more opportunity in France than there is in Wales at the moment. Anyway.
Which year was it that Catalans finished bottom and Castleford got relegated? It was
2006.
6?
7.
The grand irony, of course, if Catalans were exempt from relegation and Wigan had a salary cap exemption because they'd got no punishment for that. But they did beat St Helens 20. I've got to say that for the Castleford people. Got to stick together. Wigan 20, St Helens 0. It wasn't a very exciting game. Two almost thrown together teams. But Wigan won, and there's the Jack Faramond moment, as you mentioned earlier. So
he's a special player. I mean, watching the game, I think he dropped at least one ball, and he made some errors. He's 18, but he is a special talent. I mean,
you could see.
Yeah, him and Harry Robertson, on the other team.
He was outstanding.
Yeah, the fact they're both 18. They're both, they've got a lot of growing to do.
I like the look of John Vaughan as well.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat the gingers. Got to love a ginger. But no, it's exciting. If you're
what Meghan Markle says.
If you're fans of those clubs, you would be excited because you've got very talented young players. And I think the way, I mean, obviously, well, without injuries and suspensions, probably neither of them would have played as much as they have this year.
Yeah.
But they generally bring them through in the correct manner. You know, they get good players around them. They teach them.
In good stead.
Yeah, and but that's exciting to see that young talent. That's a good thing for Super League. You can we've got good young players.
I think the interesting comment yesterday is the question mark over Wigan at the moment is not the young players coming through. It's how they cope with not having Brad O'Neill, because he's been so important to them, and their slight dip in form recently has coincided with him being out now with an ACL for the rest of the year, and it's asking a lot of crews leaving to play the full 80 minutes, and Tom Forber probably isn't at that level where he can spell with him, and that's a really key area of what Wigan will have to cope with, in the knowledge that O'Neill isn't coming back, because you have to use the word clunky these days.
Clunky.
They do look a little bit clunky out of that dummy half for the full 80 minutes.
Well, I think they were missing 75% of their first choice spine, weren't they?
Yep.
Apart from Joe Fields. So.
And again,
and as we're saying, we're missing a chunk of
more.
All
All
100% of their spine.
Yeah, and quite a bit. But
I was going to get the balance in before the Saints fans can play.
Both teams were committed. You know, they gave it their all, but it wasn't
we
know that Derby can be.
You never thought Saints were going to hit back, did you?
Not really. Even when they had a man advantage.
Lost Liam Fowler in the warm-up as well. Although listening to Matt Pete afterwards, it sounded like they knew he had a problem, so it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Leeds and Warrington, Steve says, "What is fish hooking? That is Mikey Lewis is supposed to have done. That's that. I put your finger in your mouth, because like a fish.
Oh, it's not trying to reel in some.
I thought it was baiting.
So for the podcast listeners, I've just stuck my finger in my mouth and pulled it as like a fish hook. I assume that's what it is. I don't know.
I thought it was quite extraordinary that he went live on TV.
Yeah, just a cute subject.
Because you never in rugby league, you never really. I mean, most players won't even tell the ref.
Yeah.
It was.
What's that?
Yeah.
We're still waiting for the Alan Kilshaw film. We're still waiting for the racism things from a few weeks ago. Have they gone away now? Were they not proven? When the London player accused players of...
Oh, right. They were going to appeal and we're going to... Yeah. What did you say about things happening and then we're forgetting them? That's another example.
Sometimes I just sat there and think, oh, yeah, what happened to that? That's this programme in general.
There's a lot of people at the RFL and the clubs are kind of hoping that happens, yeah.
Do you know it's one of the greatest things in rugby league, and it's been the privilege of being sat in the press box as some idiot who, as I was described last week as a veteran, and I thought, no, I'm not. I thought, yeah, actually, I'm 20 years of sports broadcasting, 20 plus years of sports broadcasting, so I am a veteran now. I should behave more like one. But he's watching Phil and his colleague do the markings for the player ratings in a match, which are the most pointless thing on earth. Do you ever go below like a 5? What about
I
3?
don't do any ratings. I don't agree with ratings.
You just like offer suggestions.
Well, I'm asked for suggestions. I think you need to see all the stats before, and you also need to know what the game plan is, because if you think somebody's done nothing and the coach has said go out and do nothing, and the player runs in and the coach goes, you were 10 out of 10 today because you did exactly what I asked you, and you go 3, never saw them.
Computer magazines always you think average is 50, so an average rating for a player should be 5, but an average is actually 70 because.
I just hope people stop stealing my seat.
But L'Equipe in France, they do the proper, because they're French, so they do the proper. France and Australia, there's the only ones we can do now. They will go 0, they will go 1, but, you know.
0, that's not even getting on the field.
It's the French.
Yeah.
It's the French.
That's brutal.
Didn't pull his socks up properly.
What can I say?
0.
Leeds versus... Well, Warrington versus... That's why I couldn't find it. Warrington 24, Leeds 6. A game which turned just before half-time.
I think the margin... I think Brad Arthur was right that the margin didn't reflect the fact that I think it was closer than 24-6 feels like. It probably changed on David Fussy-Tua's sin binning, because in the period he was off, Warrington scored 2 tries, and that was probably the difference. The thing is, Leeds weren't very good in the period that Fussy-Tua was off, and every team knows that they've got to play with less men at some point and practice it.
That was a bad call, though.
It was a bad call.
It wasn't. It was a penalty. It was not a yellow card.
But it wasn't a try-scoring opportunity. No. But by the same token, Leeds didn't number up where Fussy-Tua would have been for Duffy's first try, and the markers were poor. that allowed Danny Walker to absolutely explode out of dummy half. Now that's nothing to do with having a man in the sin bin. That's some, as Brad Arthur himself says, that's some attention to some detail.
Which he's been working on.
So I think that Leeds are improved under Brad Arthur. They now, because of the way the results went, they do have a game on Friday night against Catalan that will define whether or not they're going to make
it's
the
a crisis
playoffs.
derby, even though both teams are, in the playoffs. Well, one team's in the playoffs, I should say.
If they did beat Catalan, then, technically they're only 2 points off the
I
Dragon.
think they're very well. You look at how badly Catalan's going; they're a very good chance of beating.
Leeds are running out of games more than anything, but they still have the opportunity in their own hands to make the six. The fixture list would tell you they probably don't, but I don't know. I saw enough in Warrington to think if they can defend like that in the big games, they're a chance. I thought Josh Thewlis's tackle on Ash Handley, which again, potential game changer. If Leeds had scored 20th minute, might have looked a little bit different. They'd have been the first team to score a try. You then got to go to Roderick Ty's tackle, which just was
game changer.
Is he Menzi Uri's nephew or something?
Did you give it the game changer in the paper?
Yeah.
I was going to say you must have done.
Well, the highlight moment.
The highlight.
He hit Lucky Miller into September.
Oh man, it was just and things.
He also doesn't know that you can't shoulder charge anymore because later on Lusoni it was.
But things like that, if
I turn a game.
Though games between two teams that are relatively equal for most of the game change on 2 or 3 big minutes, and that was the biggest minute. The second biggest minute was probably the fussy two of Simbin, and the third biggest one was Thewlis holding up Ash Handley. So Warrington deserved to win.
Nothing against Sam Lasoni, but he's not the best player in his house, let alone the best player on earth. And I think that's I can justify that.
He is. Well, she's the leading tackler in the NRLW.
She's the Golden Boot winner, isn't she?
But this
just
year,
to prove
the
I can
games
remember.
they've had, she's the leading tackler, and her team aren't even winning.
Well done, Frank Goldthorpe of Yorkshire, who scored a try.
Yeah.
If Yorkshire were an NRL team, W.
They'd be third.
Yeah.
No, I think that things are improving for that. I've a feeling that this week Leeds may announce Brad Arthur as their coach for next year.
I'll be shocked.
And possibly the year after.
What, Paul Rawley's not going? I'm sure I read that somewhere.
No, but I think the deal with Arthur is close.
Yeah, but the fact is, Phil, that they were after Paul Rawley. They've had talks with him. He's not going.
No.
Doesn't want to go.
But Arthur has made a difference and given a full pre-season and given some recruitment.
Anyone who knows Brad Arthur or saw what he did at Parramatta, he's a good coach.
Our mutual friend that we met,
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark, who has
not Phil.
Followed Brad Arthur's career.
Stalked him.
And said, he's come here to watch it.
Basically said that would be a massive coup for Leeds if they could get Brad Arthur.
Oh, I think he's a top rugby league coach. He's been coaching a long time. You look at his record, what he did at Parramatta, and I think it just showed. Obviously, this year didn't work out, but you can only be at a club for a certain period of time unless you're Craig Bellamy. Yeah. That's the the Craig Bellamy clause.
But it's also to do with recruitment as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Parramatta, what they were in the grand final 2 years ago or whatever it was, they had a tilt, and now they're in a bit of a rebuild. Mm-hmm. There's also issues off the field with their recruitment and retaining some of their best juniors, but yeah, I think Brad Arthur is a very honest coach, and he's already, I think, got Leeds working harder, more connected, defending better, better line speed, the basics. And I think, with time, he will improve. I think, no disrespect to Rowan Smith, but I think he's a better and much more experienced coach than Rowan Smith.
And it was a game that there weren't going to be many clear-cut chances created, and when Brodie Croft isn't there, and he's got most try assists.
It's a big out.
Again, I think he's back for this Friday, so we'll see.
Well done to one Hull team, because Hull FC's wheelchair team won, as did Halifax. So the playoff run in the wheelchair super is going to be very exciting in the final few weeks of the regular season. Nellie MacDonald has a YouTube channel where he gives peeks behind the scenes of rugby league. More people should be doing that. People should look at Kennedy Cherrington's social media and how she does things. She's like a superstar in Australia. She's like giving away electronic goods and stuff. What are our players? No one knows who our players are, do they? That's the problem. Maybe Nellie MacDonald wants a free telly, I don't know. But his Salford team, they did not win because they lost to Lee. I liked Lee's Magic kit. 26-0.
Yeah.
I still won't buy it because, I don't want to give
it. It did look like they were advertising on McFlurry.
Yeah. Ooh, maybe that's...
Wasn't
it
the autism kit?
I don't know.
I think it was.
I've not mentioned my experience on the pitch, have I, at Ellen Road?
Yeah,
I was given a
That was one of the highlights of Magic Room.
I was
watching Rich run on the field.
One around, given a broken camera by the RFA.
If
that's a metaphor.
If that's not some sort of Freudian slip, then I'm not here.
Do you think they made me wear a camera on my head to make me look stupid as some kind of revenge for something? Have I said something on the podcast? Am I paranoid?
No offence, Rich, but I think you can make yourself look stupid on your own regard. You don't.
It's a disgrace.
What was it? Because there was a lot going on. What was it like? What was it like being on the hallowed turf?
It was chaos. It was like chaos.
Organised chaos.
To get all the players from that corner into the pitch on time, because you've got to wait till Wigan and Saints have gone off, and they've got to come on, and they've got to set up all the pitches. Everyone comes on, plays rubbish for a bit, and get them off. Amazing effort from the people behind it, because that's a lot of people on there. There was 9 games going on. I don't know, 5, 6 aside, 7 aside, or something. I think Saints had 3 teams.
They had tries.
It was very clever. They put Saints Warrington in the corner where the Warrington fans were. It was you know when players say after a game you can't hear the noise. I'm stood in the middle of the pit. You can hear the noise, and it was very noisy. It was organic noise. It wasn't people going, "Oh, look at these people."
You didn't hear sure right you.
No. Someone did shout 4020 at me once in the stand, but that's my...
Not followed by an F.
No.
That's good.
But no, I've got some good footage, which I'm going to put together at some point and keep an eye out for it. But yeah, isn't it just great that we have all these things people can do to get involved and play rugby league? And even though they keep telling me it's non-competitive, you're telling me
it looked pretty competitive to me.
You don't tell me there's nothing non-competitive.
That was the highlight of Saturday.
Yeah,
even
I think
more
it was.
Than the rugby
Yeah.
Was the reception they got and the skills that they showed.
I'd love to score a try on road. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
We only did it in the middle game. And that's what I'm saying. If you're going to make it an experience, do something like that between all the games.
I don't like the word inspiring because it's like legendary stuff. It's got the wrong connotation. And people say, "Oh, aren't they inspiring?" And kind of like a head nod. No, they're out there playing rugby league and having a go. It's
and they really want to wear the shirt that they're wearing of the club that they support.
And that's connection.
It's one of the best things we do. All these things we do that are really good that we should be really proud of. I know there's a lot of things we do wrong that we can't be proud of, but we do a lot of things that are good. Lee beat Salford 26-0. You were there. You've watched these games. So what happened? Edwin Apapis got. He's my mate.
Salford had 2 players, Simmons. Lee looked like a team that are going to crash the 6.
That would be amazing. That would have been an amazing feat from where they've.
Who are they going to replace in the 6?
Well,
is it the team we're going to talk about in a few moments?
No, it could well be Salford. That's why it was such a big game, I think, because Salford's points difference might count against them. Are they the only team with a negative points difference?
They are, in the 6, yeah.
So, that's effectively worth a point to teams around them. So, yeah, I think, again, it's who you've got fit at the right time of year. One of the reasons Hull KR was so impressive was they were the only team that named an unchanged side.
Yeah.
And clearly we talked about who was missing for Wigan and Saints. Well, nobody's missing for Hull KR. Very few missing for Warrington. Both coaches are talking about, I need to make some tough selection decisions. Well, it's exactly what you want this time of year. Lee looks settled. And they look like they've got something to prove, which makes them dangerous. Salford have got the same problem that Salford have always had, that because their squad is so small, lots of their players are playing lots of minutes, and we're getting to the back end of the season where, yes, they're still incredibly talented. Now, Mark Sneyd didn't have one of his best games. When Mark Sneyd doesn't fire, that really affects. Ryan Briley didn't have one of his best games. The two didn't quite have the usual connection that they do. The ball didn't go to Tim Laffey enough, and we know what he can do. Nanny MacDonald, clearly Lee had done a lot of homework on making sure that he didn't get the opportunity to Lee were really solid. Asiata, Lam, Amoni. They're back to the kind of form that made them a force 2 years ago. Last year. Watch out for Lee. Who have they got this week? They're London. So
London.
Again, with the greatest respect to London,
you would think Lee would win that game. Yes.
And that puts pressure then on Salford, who were playing Huddersfield.
I think Salford and Catalans are, just looking at the table there. I mean, St Helens also playing Hull KR. That's a tough game. But I think Catalans and Salford, if you look at their form, they're under threat there.
I just think if Lee and Leeds win this week, then those 3 teams will be looking over their shoulder.
I think you need to give up on the Rhinos, Phil. But
No, I said if
Never
if
write.
they
Never. You
win
can't write
this-
them off.
no, it's never run off the Saints. Come on, get your lines
Yes,
right.
don't write off a Rhino. Never write off the Saints.
Yeah. Who said never write off the Saints?
Eddie.
No, it's Chris Joint.
Was
Oh.
People get upset if you say it was Eddie. It was Chris Joint. So that's for the
That was
Saints
Phil who
fans.
got that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, get upset with him.
Well, the Rhinos are going to win at least one grand final this year.
Okay.
He says.
Can't be greedy.
Possibly. Saints are odds on to in the Women's Super League grand final now. That York Leeds game is going to be interesting in a couple of weeks. Catalans 4, Hull KR 36. There's no point us saying, are they going to win Super League or not? Because the only time we're going to know if Hull KR are the real deal or not is around this time on October the 12th, when it's all done and dusted. Because we don't know how they're going to respond to the pressure, which in big games is different.
I just think the thing for Hull KR now, and clearly the objective achieved 5 games out, is they've got to finish in the top 2.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think if they've got a home semi-final with the crowd that they've got behind them and everybody's fit, so somebody was saying it was a great performance for as poor Catalan were. Hull KR completely dominated.
They weren't poor in the first half, though, Catalan.
No, and then we got that bizarre Julien Bousquet decision not to tackle Elliot Minchel.
Oh, that was... Someone needs to clip that up with some Benny Hill music. Because he was like, oh, no, sir, but
So-
just make a tackle.
Yeah, get sin-binned if you
No, but
need
he
to.
wouldn't have got sin-binned.
No,
it just
it
would have
would
been
have
a
given him a
penalty.
penalty.
on the Julian
I mean-
Busquets top trump, then he's not getting 90
Steve
for tackling like
McNamara
Danny
must
Cat.
be kicking cats
Puss.
and
And
tigers
he
and
is
dogs.
one of their best players.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just-
yeah.
He
It
was
was just a
far
brain
too
explosion.
gentlemanly about
Yeah.
Oh, no, please.
It was just, yeah. He was indicating for him to run.
I'm sorry, sir. Please go past me.
Yeah. I mean, it was madness.
Which set the Dragons were in it at half time, and the first set of the second half try an impossible offload in their own half, lose possession on the back of that Hull KR score.
I can't.
And you just go, like, as a coach, you just go, what the hell did I bother even telling them anything
Yeah.
for at half time?
Well, looking at the stats, because I got home and turned on the TV and saw a little bit of the end of the first half. The stats, it was 33 sets, and Hull KR was 16 from 16 completions, and Catalans was 16 from 17.
Yeah, which is
That's
decent.
I'm not criticising. I was outstanding, but obviously, yeah, Hull KR, what they did,
But somebody
second
said,
half,
at the
it's good.
moment, Hull KR the smoothest machine.
they are very smooth. Yeah.
But what happens if, heaven forbid, because you wouldn't want to wish it on anybody, they did lose a Mikey Lewis
Or
before
a
then.
May. Or a
See
May.
what
And,
happens, won't
you know, hopefully they won't. And some teams do go through this back end of the season, just get stronger because everybody's fit and there's competition for places. The hope for me is that they don't have any major injuries and they get a home semi-final, because then I do think their passage to Old Trafford, we would see them there, and the game does need new names at Old Trafford.
Well, I think there'll be fans from a few clubs who won't like what I'll say, but I think a Warrington Hull KR grand final would be great for the neutral.
And Hull KR would win. I mean, the great world's best winger scoring 2 tries there as well for Hull KR again. He must be moving.
Ryan Hall.
Yeah,
Dean
that's what
Hadley.
you're saying.
Dean Hadley's.
Another former Wakefield man, Dean Hadley. Yeah.
He learned that at Bellevue, did he?
What a pass.
No, they were great to watch. I mean, I
And they're
think
confident. That's
they
the other thing.
are very confident, very settled.
They try things and they know they can mop up if they go wrong, and they believe in it. You know, the way they're using Parcell and Litton at the moment, which is not the way that they planned to use it at the start of the season. They just need a goal kicker. I wonder who they could possibly sign
That
who
was-
can kick goals.
Well, yeah, that the goal kicking was. I don't think I've ever seen
Max
someone kick hit the post so many times. Different, but I mean, if you're a Hull KR fan at the moment, obviously there's the business end of the season, you know, and I'm not saying it will, but it could all go wrong. But if you're a Hull KR fan right now, and you look at where your team is and where your biggest rivals are, you're quite happy with life.
They've made a statement over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They now go to St Helens. That's a massive game.
And St Helens
on
are still,
both sides of the
but St
coin.
Helens are still missing a lot of players.
Yeah.
And if you're Hull KR, you're going there. You should be going there very confident what you can
Yep.
achieve.
And there'll be nervousness around St Helens that their playoff places are potentially a little bit under threat.
Surely, if we're we all assume that one day, at some point in the future, Sam Burgess is going to be back in the NRL coaching some team. Surely Willie Peters will be heading back there one day because he's doing such a great job with a team who would not be expected to be.
It won't be going unnoticed.
Winning, being at the top of the table, potentially being the minor premiers and all that. Huddersfield versus Castleford. Now, the main thing I took away from this when I got home yesterday and put the telly on was I recognised that touch judge. And the only two touch judges I recognise are Warren Turley, because he listens to the podcast, he's our friend, and Tara Jones. And it's only because Warren Turley's not got a ponytail that I thought, that's Tara Jones. And then you don't notice them again because they're just touch judges and just wave a flag and stuff. Was that the most exciting thing about the game apart from Gary's try?
The sprinklers going off and drenching Craig Lingard before the game was quite fun.
Rodri Jones. Poor Craig. Did he have his hat on?
Had to change his clothes. Swallowed a whole load of...
Did he have shoes on?
I was going to say, did he have his shoes on?
That was about as exciting as it got, really.
Castleford are brilliantly grounded, as Craig might say, in this position where they're not going to finish in the bottom two, and they're not going to finish in the top six. They're just there, and they have had a up and down season, but that was expected, and everyone they're still positive, but not a great performance. From what I saw, the kid taking on the Huddersfield side, who were just above them in the table, but it wasn't really in doubt that result, was it?
When Jake Connor played, he was the best guy on the field. He still has the propensity to drop a high ball that he shouldn't, or not get as involved as he should, but he probably was the difference between the teams. But in terms of listening to Mike Eccles saying, I think we've seen a championship match between Hull and London.
No, that was Mr. Griggs.
Was it Mr. Well,
but he agreed.
Mr. Eccles agreed.
Yeah.
I think we saw a mid-table championship match.
Oh dear. It's not very good, is it? So don't bother watching Castle with Warrington on Friday night.
No, I wouldn't say that. But
they watched Leeds Catalans because that's the big game where
Paul McShane
Brian
was going to play and didn't play, and I think Cass certainly needed him.
Yeah, this week's Super League fixtures: Castleford versus Warrington. That's on the app. That's on the red button. You've got to press the button. I know you're all shocked about this, but even though we knew about it 6 months ago, keep writing your letters to the paper. It's not going to change. It's not going to change. You may as well not bother. Save the price of a stamp. Leeds versus Catalans. It's reunion round.
It is.
Price is the same price when Leeds were good.
2004, 2014.
2004.
Lots of ex-players from those eras going to be there, and beer is the price that it was in 2004.
So Leeds' golden era.
£1.
Leeds' golden era started the year I got married. I mean, that's a depressing thing to think about. In both senses, Leeds being bloody good. Well, it's not anymore. Saturday, Salford Huddersfield, 5:30. St Helens Hull, 3:00. That's the Sky game. That's on the telly. That's Brian and Sam and whoever else is there.
Not Kyle, because he's
not
coaching
Kyle. He's coaching Whitehead. Well, he could be like Paul Cook and do both.
Well, or Sam.
Or Sam Tompkins.
1 minute he's on the touchline giving his opinion. The next time he's wearing the Catalan tracksuit with the coach.
I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think that's a bit of a conflict of interest. If you're playing week in, week out, you shouldn't be part of
the telly.
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting Mr. Haaland, on the punditry team for Liverpool v Manchester United.
You're probably better than half the pundits they do employ, though.
I think he's a very good pundit.
And he's from Leeds.
I think he's very knowledgeable.
He's from Leeds.
Oh no, I wasn't talking about him. He's the one who only eats raw. Doesn't he drink 4 gallons of milk?
He's from Leeds. It's just what they like.
I think he's Norwegian. But
no, he's Leeds. No, he's born in Leeds. He's Leeds.
Just because he was born in Leeds doesn't mean he's
born in a stable. He's a cow. Sunday.
Like Jesus.
Yeah. London versus Lee. Who Jesus play for? London Broncos versus Lee and Wigan versus Hull. They're on the app. You have to press a button. 3:00 on Sunday. I'll be at work, so we'll watch either.
So maybe we shouldn't have games kicking off at the same time.
Well, no, I mean, we've got.
And that's again something that for next year, because this all came in quite late.
I will bet Richard's life, Phil, that it will happen again next year.
Well, then we get what we deserve.
I mean, I would say that's harsh.
In terms of promotion, we get what we deserve.
I'd say that's harsh, but you're right. So
I don't want to bet my life, but yeah,
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'll still be on the podcast next year. If not, John's taking over. I'll give him a full training course. I think that's it, isn't it? I think apart from say the magazine. What's the highlight of the magazine this month?
It depends what people like to read. Far be it from me to say.
Oh, yeah. I think we should. Do you think we should get our own top trumps?
Yeah.
Because we'll have to do an off-brand.
What spelling mistake?
Yeah, off-brand version. But but not
Grammatical
tackling
errors.
99 for tackle. There's got to be a steward's inquiry on that.
Phil,
Gotta
can you tell me why Wales and Jamaica are playing on a Tuesday night?
Because Wales need to get a game in before they play in the World Cup qualifiers.
Could they not play it on the weekend before?
Hey, it's on my birthday.
No, because
On a
they need
Sunday.
the championship players, and it's the last weekend of the championship regular season.
It's not great
Well,
timing,
but
is it?
it's great having it in Wales because it's a long time since we've actually had a Welsh
So
international.
it's on my birthday.
Jamaica haven't played a game since the World Cup, have they?
No.
No, it's good to see games
Actually,
being organised. It just would be nice if there was more consideration
I
given
think
to them.
there's 25 matches that I know of being arranged, which includes the World
Pacific,
Cup qualifiers. But every nation that can play will play. So I think Scotland will be playing the Netherlands, Italy are playing Malta, Wales are playing Jamaica. So there's going to be more international rugby league than we've ever had before, even though supposedly we were supposed to be having less because we were decreasing the number of nations in the World Cup, and it was going to have a terrible knock-on effect it's had is that more nations are playing.
Are you working on anything exciting that you can't tell us about? Or just finding gossip for next week's chicken wings?
A couple of things, yeah. Well, there'll be a story out tomorrow. It's not the most. Bit of transfer potential news for one Super League club. Looking at the
People will be saying,
NRL market.
is it St Helens? Is it Salford?
But no, there's a couple other
Is it
stories.
Is it a Manly player going to Castle?
Any news from Leeds? Because that's all the internet people talk like. I've heard them.
No comment.
I think there's an ex-Parramatta prop coming to Leeds. Well, current Parramatta prop, but he will be an ex-Parramatta.
I think ALS.
You understand Kennedy Sherrington? She's good. We'll be back next week. Oh no, wait, it's Bank Holiday Monday. We're back on Tuesday. Yeah. It's come around. They come around so quickly. These bank holidays.
It's the last one before Christmas.
I know. Tuesday next week. Does that sound good? So Tuesday. We'll watch all the games by then. What I've done, just watch the highlights. Thank you for your company. So I said that on the proper radio. I shouldn't say, hey, you're not with me. You're there. You're through Bob.
You're reusing your lines.
I know. Well, and at least I don't do my radio voice on this because that's the worrying thing. I can just slip into it, and it is dangerous. But thank you for listening and watching. We'll be back next Tuesday.
Making this the number one
podcast in Mexico. There might be something coming up in the middle of the week if I remember to arrange it. So,
can we aim for Panama?
I mean,
take over all of Central America. Would be good.
Honduras,
Guatemala,
the West Indies, which is not a real place. It's apparently they had a rugby league team at one point, but
or rather they didn't.
You wouldn't want Viv Richards running at you off an edge, would you?
No, or any of them.
Curtly Ambrose,
Courtney Walsh. Any other
Michael
cricketers?
Richie Richardson,
Yorkshireman Richie
Shanda
Richardson.
Paul. We could go all day.